Welcome to Mark My Words, a podcast that not only aims to inspire and teach the listener about entrepreneurship, it also aims to give my guests an opportunity to talk about their unique journey in entrepreneurship and life. So join me and my guests as we meet at the crossroads on Mark My Words. Today on Mark My Words, I have a guest who, although I don't even come close to matching them in actual music ability, that I do actually kind of match them as far as knowledge. Chris Wilson was able to name every record behind me, even the one he wasn't too sure of, he still knew. He didn't mention the 45s. We can talk about that in a minute.
I can't quite make them out. Yeah, they're a little blurry there, but yeah, so it's hard to see. Like one of them almost looks like a Bee Gees, but it's hard to, you can't really see, the photos are too small. But
I guess you're close. They're all ABBA 45s.
Oh, ABBA, okay, yeah, I could see like there's definitely like a guy with a beard going on, but ABBA,
Yep,
okay,
that
cool.
would be Benny Anderson. That ABBA is like my all-time favorite band. Which
Yeah.
They've been my favorite band for like 40 years. So
great band, yeah. I've got the music artwork too. I've got Van Halen. I think there's the Who. There's Pink Floyd. You can see the Who one in the background, the yellow one. This one. It's the Quadrophenia cover. Yeah.
Well, putting that aside, I'll finish introducing you.
Okay.
So, Chris Wilson, he is an entrepreneur. He is the author of 2 books. He's a business coach. He's a working guitarist. And he is here to make your life easier. But on top of all of that, probably in my mind, the most significant thing is that he is the founder and director of the Academy of Music and Art, Inc. for a little over 30 years. So, Chris Wilson, thank you for being here this morning. Welcome to Mark My Words. How are you doing?
Great. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me out.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks again for bringing all this energy and for naming every record behind me. I know this setup, as I point in the wrong direction, this setup gets a lot of attention. So
oh yeah,
I like being a show off with my record collection. So that's a little bit, I don't know if that's like narcissistic or whatever, but
yeah.
It's a good conversation piece, kind of like your career and everything that you have done in your life. So your life revolves all around music, and it has for a very long time. And one thing I want to start out with before we really dig into what makes you you, was there a time where you thought about doing something other than music or anything theatrical?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a kid, and this is in like the early 70s because I'm 55. I remember wanting to play an instrument, and my mom going, "Oh, that's like too hard. Like it's, your Uncle Dennis, my brother, tried to learn a saxophone, and there's too many keys on it. It's really hard." And we'd be watching someone on TV, and my mom had this idea, and a lot of people had this idea that these people have this special talents or skills to become a musician, and like, our family didn't possess it. We weren't like musicians. And so I kind of had that implanted in me at an early age. I still, at some point when I was about 12, got a guitar and started working towards it. But I remember sitting down with my high school guidance counselor at the school I went to like a private Catholic boys' school, sitting down with the counselor and, talking about the future. You have your career counselor. And when I said I wanted to do something with music, he's like, "No, it's really hard. And, there's no money in this." Now, understand that this was a guy making $17,000 a year. I mean, this wasn't someone who should have been giving me life advice because he didn't have much of a life as far as I could tell. So I did actually graduate from high school and try to go to business school for a semester. And I went in the first day, like not even school, but it's a public university, very great school. I'm going to study business, and we're in these high-rise dorms, like these 20-story buildings they pack you in. First day, it's not even class. It's like orientation. Like you've moved in, the RA, the resident advisor, has us all meet, and we kind of do the icebreaker. Like everybody meets everybody on the floor. And we're supposed to tell us our name, where we're from, what we're studying, and like what we're into. And as we're going around the room, there's Mike, and he's from Morton Grove, and he wants to be a bodybuilder and do something with physical fitness, but he's going to be an accountant. And there was Ralph. Ralph was a cool guy. He was from Elmhurst. He was really into martial arts. Like he wanted to do something with that, but he was going to become a trader. So he was studying like finance, because in Chicago, we have like the mercantile exchange and stuff like that. So he was going to do that. And everybody was doing something they didn't want to do. Like everybody had a dream. Everyone had a passion. We were all 18, 19 years old. Everyone had a path, and none of us were doing it. So when it came time to me, I should have said, hi, I'm Chris. I'm from Chicago. I'm studying business, but I'm really into music. Instead, I said, hey, I'm Chris. I'm not going to be here very long, because at the end of the semester, I'm moving to Boston to go to Berkeley College of Music. So I'm out of here, because in my mind, as I'm hearing people say this, I'm like, I'm just... And I'm not one who hears voices, but it's like, we're not doing this. Like, I have to at least try. I have to at least give this a shot. Maybe I fall on my face. Maybe it goes nowhere. Maybe I can't make the cut at Berkeley and they kick me out, or I fail all my classes. But I have to at least try. And if I don't try, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. So I did my one semester of business school. And in January of 1986, got in my car with my dad and my brother and drove to Boston. I had applied to Berkeley, and, I found the building and went in, and I graduated with honors. I was an A student. I actually really excelled at it. I was like, oh, I really found something I'm good at. So I did try not to do it. I did try to say, okay, I'm going to do something else. And, even within my own business, starting the guitar school, which we can talk about, there's been times where you sort of are less doing the music and more doing the business, which is cool. And it's interesting. It's a nice break for a couple of years to really, or 5 years or whatever it is, you're going off and on doing business stuff. But after a while, you're sort of drawn back to the guitars, and you're drawn back to the helping people learn music, and you're drawn back to playing music. So it's this like weird magnetic pull that keeps pulling you back in. And you can't really explain it. It's just like you're drawn to it. It's like you'll never retire. I met with the retirement advisor, because when you retire, I was like, oh no, musicians don't retire. Like when we stop playing, that's when we die. That's why musicians live to be like 95 years old. So that's why Keith Richards is still alive.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I did make attempts to, and sometimes just out of necessity, like, okay, I have to concentrate on the business side of things. But yeah, you sort of get drawn back into it over and over again.
So your story reminds me a little bit of where I was when I was like 18, 19 years old, because I had a particular, I pretty much grew up tinkering around with like old black and white TVs, and
Yeah.
I would like study TV guides and stuff, and I felt very drawn to like the television industry. And I
Okay.
think I kind of like knew that that's what I wanted to do. And when I got old enough to be thinking about college, told my parents like, hey, this is what I want to do. I think these are some of the places I wanted to go. And I kept getting told, no, you should just get a business degree. And actually, my dad put it more like, oh, you should get an effing business degree, and had
Yeah.
that kind of attitude. Why are
Sure.
you fooling around with all of this? And it kind of like messed me up a little bit as far as like, going forward after high school. And eventually, like, I did wind up going to the college that they kind of like more or less made me go to. It was a local college. It was a good place to go, but it didn't even have my major. It didn't have what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
eventually, I just dropped out. And eventually, after working in retail for a while, nothing against retail, but I wound up working at like Best Buy and doing some other things. And had a foray in woodworking, and I think after all that, they kind of changed their tune a little bit and just kind of let me do what I wanted to do. And now, like 20 years later, I'm still working in my field. So I guess I
Yeah.
knew what I was doing.
Yeah, well, and I think we it sounds like we both have like well-intentioned parents. Like business school's good because I want my kid to get a job and everything. But if you don't have any passion for something, and you know, aptitude is one thing. Like you might be good with numbers, and you know, does that mean you should be an accountant? Well, when I talk to my accountants who are great, they're like really into it. They have like passion for accounting. If you're not an accountant, it sounds crazy, but if you can appreciate the passion for it. So I think if you have a passion for something, that's what you're going to be great at because you're going to do the work. You know, you have to, because it's the work. Everyone has to do the work.
Well, not only do I not have the passion to do anything business or math related, I don't have the ability. Like
Yeah.
I I don't even think if I'm getting older, so it's harder to remember exactly what I took. I know I had an issue with basic geometry,
Sure.
and if I did take algebra before college, I think I dropped it pretty fast to do applied math, which I did like 2 or 3 years of, even though I
Sure.
wound up being college ready in most other cases and wound up going to college. I was done with math. I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
good
yeah.
at math. I'm not going to get any better at math, although I think I did get a little bit better in college because they kind of forced me. But
Sure.
I'm just terrible at math.
Well, and you know, college has really changed. My daughter just graduated from a major university, and she got her degree in education, and she didn't have to take a math class. Like they're like you have to take what they call it quantitative reasoning now. So you have to take something like that, but you don't like algebra is no longer required. Like it used to be, everyone had to take college algebra, not required anymore. A lot of places that the modern curriculum is like, you know, we don't really need this.
I think I'm gonna hop in the DeLorean and go back and go to school wherever she's at because
Well, that's
that's
now.
awesome.
That's present day. That's you know, she graduated in 2021. So yeah, she went to Illinois, University of Illinois.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm gonna go there.
yeah, it's a great school. Yeah, she really got a great education there. But it's just a lot different. I think people have adopted a really much more modern way of thinking about what people need versus okay, everyone has to take algebra. It's like everyone doesn't have to take the same classes anymore. You know,
Wow, that's
so that's kind of
amazing.
cool. Yeah,
Well, let's get back to you and talk a little
sure,
bit about the Berkeley College of Music, which
sure. Yeah,
is a pretty prestigious
yeah,
institution.
yeah. That was
What,
great.
other than like the prestige of it, what inspired you to go in that direction and go there, other than the obvious, of course?
Yeah. Well, the big thing was, and this is in 1980s things, like I'm a guitarist, and specifically, you can see my amplifiers. I'm an electric guitarist, and so schools you have what you declare your principal instrument. I'm a singer, I'm a violinist, I'm a whatever. Guitar is not a common instrument at universities, especially sort of the traditional, you know, your traditional universities. You know, you can't go to Juilliard and electric guitar be your instrument. So there were only a few schools that had like real electric guitar programs. You had Miami, you had Berkeley, you had USC. I don't know if there's any other, there weren't many. There's a lot more now. Um, you know, and Berkeley was kind of where everybody went. Like all the major, you know, jazz players and rock players, it seemed like that was really producing stuff. In Berkeley as well, you could do whatever you wanted. Like they didn't have like the boundaries of you have to do this and you have to do this. They're like, you have to be able to, you know, have your basic skills down, but there were no real boundaries as far as what styles of music you played. It didn't really matter. No one, you know, there wasn't anything like that. So it was a very modern, contemporary thinking school. And I think that's what really drew me to it at the time. It was also the cheapest music school you could go to at the time. It's not any, now it's very expensive, but it was like totally like completely affordable. Yeah.
Wow. So was it considered like the way it's considered now, like this
Yeah, it was
super?
like an elite. It was an elite school. Yeah, especially for contemporary music. I mean, it's the number one place for contemporary music. It was the number one place for contemporary music in the '80s, and especially for guitar players, like you know the major players, like particularly in jazz guys. You know, Al Di Meola, John Scofield. If those names mean anything to people, went there. Steve Vai, the guys in Dream Theater. So there was just a lot going on in the Berkeley scene. It was producing people who went places, and a lot of it was the emphasis on contemporary music.
So when you go to a school like that, is it just purely music focused? Do they teach you like business skills too? Do they have that
Uh,
option?
So so you take they do have like you take your general education classes, gen ed, so your English, your history, whatever it is, psychology. Uh, you have to take all, whatever you take at a standard university, you have to take the liberal arts classes, general education classes there. Um, it was, so when I was there, they didn't have, like, I think they now have they merged with another university, so you can actually study proper business classes. But they had a class on the music business, but it really just sort of, it wasn't like a business class, like business. Like when you think of it, like, this is what marketing is, this is what management is, this is what finance is, this is how accounting works. It was it was more just like an overview of how the business works. So you understood, like, here's how, this is what a publishing company is, and this is what a record company is, and this is what it meant. So you understood what it was. You didn't know how it worked. You didn't know anything about finance. You didn't know anything. Like, they didn't have anything, and they may have that now. But music business for a lot of places was just like a one semester class that just talked about, you could say, oh, this is what publishing means, or this is what mechanicals are. But you didn't develop like business skills, or anything. You didn't leave knowing something, you just had sort of a cursory knowledge of, you're going to go work in the mailroom, basically. You're not going to, you're not going to get a job. You're not going to get a job in a business, doing business.
Well, I shouldn't make any assumptions, but knowing the world and the way everything has evolved, I wouldn't be too surprised if, even if it's not at Berkeley, somebody out there is offering additional
Oh
stuff
yeah,
to
for sure. Yeah.
educate.
Yeah, and I think they do now. I think, because I know they partnered with Harvard. They have a law. You can go into a law school now, so they have a lot more options, than they had then. So yeah, but still, overall, cool. I mean, it was a great experience for me.
So, what was the end goal by the time you completed your experience there? What were you hoping to get out of it? What were you hoping to do with it?
Sure. Well, for me, Berkeley was like, okay, get to the level of like a professional musician, was one. So it's like, I knew that you have to have like a marketable skill. So if you graduate from business school with a degree in accounting, you want to be able to sit and pass the CPA exam, right? Become a certified that's like your ticket. And so you want to be able to go into a job interview, and you're going to talk to someone about accounting. They're going to interview you, and you can't BS your way through like an interview, right? So you have to hit that professional level. So with music, it was like, okay, you want to be on the professional level. If someone hands you music or wants to hear you play, you have to be able to produce something. If you go in the studio with a band, you can't, the tape is rolling. Like, you can't BS your way through it, and there's no double talk. It's like, now you got to produce. So I think that was the main thing, like, hit that professional level so that I can go out and hustle then and sell myself as a musician, and, get something going. And so I actually, in 1990, moved back to Chicago, and that was sort of the next step in the journey.
So, if I go to Berkeley and I'm an awesome guitarist, I graduate and I want to see the world, I want to be able to go and try out for, let's say, we're in 1998, Shania Twain is going on a world tour and she's looking for a guitarist. I want, with that background, to be able to have the confidence and that backing to try out, to give myself a better edge over maybe somebody who is also really good, but maybe didn't go to an actual formal school. Is that
Yeah.
like the kind of edge? I'm using maybe a weird example, but
Yeah, well, I think it's whatever you need to do, because some people come up just playing in band. Like, if you're talking about Shania, you're talking about the Nashville thing. I don't know if those guys went to school. Nashville's the best musicians in the world, but I think it's like, people don't really care what your background is. They care if you can produce. So whatever it is you need to do to get your edge, you do. So like Brad Paisley, fantastic guitar player. He went to Belmont University, so he's in Nashville. He's incredibly talented, but he's also sort of in the scene, making a reputation for himself while he's a student. So yeah,
And that's
yeah, and I
fair.
think everything you do, yeah, anything you do, because once you get in the room, like they don't care. Shania Twain doesn't care about your background. It's like this is you either can come up with these guitar parts on the record or you can't. If you're doing live, you can either duplicate the record exactly or you can't, and that's all that really matters. And then do they like being around you and working with you? You
I
know,
guess on one hand, I think I know that already, but on the
sure,
other hand, I'm trying to like relate it to like
yeah,
a more, I guess, traditional schooling. Because I guess for me, without having college and then going on and doing some of the things I've done, I don't think that I would have been able to continue to up
yeah,
my level. Who knows? I
yeah,
could have just never gone to college and have been like an amazing master control operator. And somehow it's
yeah.
like, well, we don't care that he never went to college. We'll hire him at like Disney anyway or whatever. So
Right.
I'm trying to like relate to that, but I do understand that it doesn't, the rules, I think, with a lot of that on that end, on that level, they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, the example I'll give you is maybe computer science people. We hear the stories about these 17-year-old kids, right? And you land a job making 250,000 a year. It's like, well, because they can actually do the stuff, like they can whatever it is they need to do. Now, how did they learn how to do that? How are they so far ahead of somebody who, went to college for 4 years or whatever? Sometimes that happens, but where you having an opportunity to develop the skills and really taking advantage of it. So like you can go to college and just party and do nothing. That's fine. But if you went and said, "Hey, I'm really going to learn something so I can be at the top of your game." So if you can learn it all in your house, then maybe you don't need college. I think it's really hard sometimes to learn a lot of stuff outside of formal education. Like, because how would let's say you're okay, I'm going to join a band. Well, how do you join a band that needs you, that's actually going to teach you, that you don't maybe this band just does one thing and you only get good at one thing and it's narrow, or any with computers or anything, it's like learning things, constantly keeping your edge. It's not easy. It's really, that's kind of the effort. You're not, after 4 years of college, you're not done, you're just starting.
well, I think in a lot of fields and professional situations, especially today with all the technology we have, it's much easier to kind of bypass having a formal education. Like if you can just send somebody a reel of your skills, whether it is
Yeah,
computer programming, graphic arts, or
sure.
trying out for a world tour, if you
Yeah.
can show that, like that's all that really matters.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's access to technology. So if you're talking about learning how to run like a TV console, well, you have to actually be sitting at a TV console to do it, right? Don't you? I mean, you have to have access to $10 million worth of hardware or whatever it is. So I think that's one of the things. Like at Berkeley, had recording studios. So if you want to learn how to work at mixing boards and reel-to-reel tape machines, could you maybe get an internship or work for free at a recording studio in New York? I mean, maybe. But if you went to Berkeley, you would at least be trained on how to use stuff. You would at least know something um, that would give you at least like a way in to say, okay, I don't know, I know something. I have some skills.
You just mentioned mixing board. That
Yeah,
not to dwell on me because there are a few things I want to ask you, but
sure,
I know being like a producer was a dream of mine for a while. I obviously didn't go in that direction at all, but
sure,
that was something that I kind of dreamed about, and I still on my own time I like kind of tinkering with
sure.
sounds and stuff, but yeah, that I think that would have been awesome to
Yeah,
have the opportunity. I know I did take an audio production class, and that was a lot of fun. But
sure.
I would have loved to have dug into
Yeah,
that even more, and I didn't. But I like the path I chose, but that would have been fun too.
yeah. Great.
But putting that aside, I want to go back to 1990. So
Sure.
you head back home, and what were you thinking at that point? Is that the point where you where you decided to start your own business?
Well, I graduated from college and I moved back to Chicago. I was living in an apartment with my brother Rob. It was 4th of July weekend, 1990. And it was, I didn't have a job. I needed to do something to make money. And I didn't want to get a job. So I was like, okay, well, I'll start a guitar school. And so I started a guitar school. It was 4th of July weekend. This is before the internet. So it was like there weren't things like online printers. So I literally took a sheet of paper like this and I drew business cards on it. I made hand-drawn business cards. I made a handwritten flyer and went to a store called Guitar Center and started networking and trying to get guitar students. And I started getting students. And I think by the end of the first week, I had 5 students. And I was like, okay, so if I can get up to like 20, 25 hours a week, like I don't have to get a job. This will sustain me during the day. And then at night I can go play in bands and work with songwriters and work that and sort of do both. But I have something that's generating money where I don't have to be a waiter. I don't have to work in a coffee shop, something like that. I don't have to do a 9 to 5.
Yeah, no, I can understand where you're coming from with that. Because,
yeah, so I just did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I, for one, at this point, after doing all the things I've done with my career, I know right now I'm kind of like freelancing a bit and holding myself up. But I think my last option and last resort would be to go or want to go back to working in like retail or doing something
Sure.
a little more traditional. Like I have a passion for what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. So you're going to do all you can when you
Yeah.
have that passion to make
Yeah.
sure that that is your life, as opposed to having to split it with something that you're just not passionate about.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I did a show on my there's a post on my Facebook channel that just went up today, and I was talking to another guitarist last week, and it was like when you have to do something, that's when all of a sudden you see these opportunities. The opportunities have always been there, but it's like, okay, I have to do this. I have to get the school going. I have to get clients. I have to start working, or I have to get a job. Like it's like, okay, 2 options, so when you have to do something, I think that's when you really do it and say, okay, well, okay, how do I get clients? I was lucky. So my dad owns companies. And so I grew up working for him. So like I already sort of knew how to sell because I watched him sell. And I knew about things like direct mail, and I knew about things like brochures, and I knew there were no websites in 1990, right? Like there was no AOL. People don't even remember what AOL is. None of that stuff really existed. So it was like old school marketing. So it was things like flyers and business cards and networking, classified ads, yellow pages became a big thing. But it was like I just went out and did it and did what I could, and then saw the results, and then did some more, and then just like anything, you basically do the marketing side of things. So I have 2 jobs. I'm a guitar teacher, I'm a guitarist, but I'm also a marketer and a seller. So I'm selling Chris the guitarist, I'm selling Chris Wilson Guitar Studio.
So was that basically like the birth of what became the Academy
Yeah.
overall?
Yeah, the business took off right away. I had a lot of guitar students, and by December, the building was like, I was living in this apartment building. They're like, this is a residential building. You can't run a business out of it. So they're like, it's one thing if you have like a couple people stopping by or someone picking something up or dropping off, but you're clearly running a business, and so that's a no-no. So I actually rented a space from a record store, and that was where my office was. And it just sort of grew from there. In 1993, I had my own commercial space, and I started shortly thereafter hiring people, and then it sort of evolved. It became Chris Wilson School of Music. We started teaching all the instruments. And then I realized if I really wanted to grow the business, like I needed to take my name off the door. So it was around 2000 that it became the Academy of Music and Art. There's the dog barking. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it became the Academy of Music and Art, and we started I added an art department, I added summer camps, I added a dance department, I added a theater department, and like every couple of years I kept adding stuff. So can we hit pause? I have to go sign for a guitar really quick.
Okay, so
all right, time out. 1 second.
Walk away for a second. He has a delivery, and while he is tending to that, he told me before we started that he had a delivery for a guitar and that the dog might go a little barking nutty when that happens. And it looks like it did not disappoint. That is exactly what happened. And I'm basically just filling the time for the moment here while Chris tends to that and comes back.
I'm
But
back.
he came back in like really amazing time. So I told
Yes.
you I'd fill the time. That was
That's
perfect.
cool. For the people, so I ordered a new guitar yesterday, and so it just arrived. And of course, they say it's going to come between 9 and 5, and it's during the interview that it comes. What are the
Yeah,
odds of it arriving by 9:30? And
that's
so
why I didn't really like exchange a lot of pleasantries before we started. I'm like, okay, if I hit record right now and we just go, maybe we
yeah.
can get through it. And there, no, it had to happen.
Well, now I won't be sitting here for the now. I can actually go do something for the rest of the day, so that's kind of cool. So
Well, that's good.
yeah. So
So
anyway,
you were talking about the evolution and growth of
yeah,
the academy.
yeah. And so it just kept going. It was like I realized at some point there weren't really limits. Like it didn't just have to be a guitar school. Like it didn't have to be one person giving guitar lessons. I could have a couple guys working for me. It didn't have to just be guitar. It could be piano. It didn't have to be just guitar and piano. It could be all the different instruments. Our clients were all children, so we could do children's programs. Well, what about art classes? What about painting classes? And it just sort of became really whatever I wanted it to be. Yeah, actually, at one point I looked into like during the day, the space is really kind of empty during the day. It's like, okay, so could we start daycare? We didn't have the zoning for daycare, but it was like, okay, what can I do that's 24 hours a day to really use this space? Could we rent it out to people at night, for band rehearsals or whatever? So it became almost like the idea of like limitless opportunities and seeing all the different things you could do within it.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I think it's a lesson in sticking with what you have and,
Yeah.
just there, once one door opens and once one egg cracks, who knows what else can come of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's if you look out into the world, a lot of it is your mental attitude. So if you're looking for like bad things and problems, you'll find them. Like they're out there. But if you look, right next to something that's really negative is probably a positive opportunity. And if you're open to that, you might meet somebody and they present you with an opportunity, or you just don't know. So I think having that real optimistic look of like seeking out opportunities and seeking out solutions, that's what you'll see, and your brain will just sort of naturally seek those things out, and you'll almost sort of ignore the negative things because your brain is so focused on seeing like the opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, I can agree more. Just with me doing this podcast, it
Yeah.
started as just an idea like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. Okay, what's it going to be about? What kind of people am I going to have on it?
Yeah.
And it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and hopefully still growing and evolving. But it's come like such a long way. Just the way I present and go about it, it has changed a lot. The ideas I have for the future. So just because you have just an idea that seems very like niche and only going in one direction, if you just keep working at it, it can easily just go off and off and off and off.
Yeah, I just think it is just seeing the opportunities are there and having the vision. It's once I started hiring employees, I started hiring people to work for me, because it was interesting how much I wasn't selling necessarily to the customers, trying to get them to sign up for guitar lessons or sign up some, but now I'm sitting across from someone who works for me trying to sell them on ideas. Hey, look, I want to do this department, and I'd like you to teach these classes. And like, oh, you can't do that. Like all you hear is like, I can't. I understand this. They understand something very narrow. And to find someone who really, they believe in you, or they believe in your ideas, or maybe even they're just open to the idea, of like this could actually be something. We could actually do something. We could make this happen. I mean, that's kind of the other half of the deal. When you own a business, is you're selling your staff on being a part of your business, but also on your vision of like, this could be something great. And sometimes people don't see beyond what it is they know, and they don't want to know beyond what they know.
Well, it's been 31 years of this academy.
Yes,
Obviously, the world has changed a whole lot.
sure.
How has how have things changed for you as far as like how you do business, how you get people to sign up to be a part of it, to work for you? How has all of this changed?
It has changed, but it's been gradual. I think when people first started really talking about the internet and AOL, this was, and that for the younger people, that's America Online. That's how people used to get on the internet. I think it was 1993, 1994 when we started doing internet advertising, and it was American Online, AOL, and you had a homepage, and so people could go to your homepage and find you. And I think when I did that, it was like, oh, we're going to get this flood of clients from this. And we didn't, like, nobody saw my AOL homepage. But I did learn that, oh, people use Yellow Pages. So I learned how to use Yellow Pages. And that was where we got our clients. But I sort of stuck with doing stuff on the internet. And at some point, I started putting my name on like bulletin boards online, like musiclessons.org. And so you list all your stuff on there. And none of it ever really produced anything. And I remember producing like a website in the late 90s. And it was like a template website, and it looked really bad. But and this was before Google. There was no Google. There were no search engines, so people couldn't find stuff. But when Google and that stuff finally came out, I had been doing online advertising enough where I had an idea of how it worked. Like I knew how to build off a website template. And so when there were updates, I made changes. So at some point, it was like a 3-year transition. Yellow Pages just sort of disappeared off the radar. And all of a sudden, everything was about Google and everything was about websites. And it became, you had pay-per-click advertising. Google AdWords came out. I think that was like 2006, 2007, where they were widely used. All of a sudden, you could start selling things online with a credit card. Like people could punch in their credit card and make a purchase. And, in the 90s, that didn't really exist. You couldn't buy something. I know people are like, really? It's like you couldn't sign up online. There were no like softwares. The idea of like a web-based software didn't really exist. Like our scheduling softwares, they mailed you a disk and you put it on your computer and everything was on your computer. So if your computer broke, all your data was lost. So so we just sort of evolved with the evolution of it, knowing that, okay, we need to evolve and whatever that is. And that things change all the time. Facebook was looking good, and now you can't. Something happened with tracking on Facebook. You can't track, so now you don't get the geo-targeting or something. So Facebook's maybe less effective now, or it's more expensive now. So those things changed. The one thing that has never changed is the message of talking about what's important to the customer. Like that type of thing. That when we started talking about this, I shared the story of my mom said, you can't learn saxophone because Uncle Dennis tried learning, there's too many keys and it's too hard. You have to have some special talent. If you go on my website, it'll say guitar lessons for all ages. You don't need any special talents or skills to learn how to play the guitar. That is on every single page. We have a musical. We're doing Little Mermaids, our next kids musical we're doing. It's like Little Mermaid auditions. Your child does not need any special talents or skills. We're telling them that because that's the message that resonates with them. And that's the thing that sort of maybe held me back a little bit, where I was like, oh, I don't know that I could do this. So that hasn't changed. That message of like what's important. Some people call it the value proposition. Some people call it the unique selling proposition. That goes back 100 years or 200 years in marketing. That hasn't changed. And if you have that, the channel you market on, Facebook, Google, Yellow Pages, doesn't matter. It's your message that's going to resonate. You're going to put it in front of somebody and they're going to go, oh, really? I thought my kid needed some special talent. That's the right place for us. That's a message that connects. They don't care that I went to Berkeley. They don't care who has a PhD. They care how they're going to feel and how their kids are going to do at the school. So I think that's the thing.
And I think that's an awesome message to send out, because even if you're not going to become the next Jimmy Page or, name drop whoever your favorite musician might be.
There's Eddie Van Halen for you. Yeah.
Van Halen, okay.
That's Eddie right there in my office. So,
there, sure enough.
Classic Eddie. Yeah.
So even if you're not going to become that, you can still build valuable life skills
Oh
and
yeah.
you can have fun and form friendships. And there's so many other things that you can get out of it.
Yeah, and we talk about that, confidence, self-esteem. Uh, there's something to be said for showing up every week and working at something. And that's one of the things you get from sports. When you go play baseball or football, even if you're not good, and you know that, okay, I'm not going to become a professional football player, right? Like 1 in 10 million become a professional player, but you're going to be working with a team. You're going to be working together. You're going to learn to depend on others. You're going to show up every week and you're going to do your best. And maybe you're going to win, maybe you're going to lose. Regardless, you're going to show up and practice that week, and you're going to have another game next Saturday. And then and sometimes you get the trophy and sometimes you don't, but it's that idea of showing up. And I think it's when you don't get the trophy. I think it's when you lose that it's like, okay, we got to I hate losing. And so, I mean, that's something you could learn. That's something they could bring to people. And I think music is the same thing. It's like, okay, I'm trying to learn this song. And it's like, you can say, I accomplished this. I learned how to play this, and it's that, it could be anything, but it's just that thing of, and like for me, I play in bands. I noticed the Shania Twain album. I was working with a band and we were learning Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Do you know the song?
Absolutely.
It's actually a hard song because the rhythms are weird and there's a long section, and it's her ex-husband, Mutt Lang, was the producer. There's a lot going on. The band I'm working with, we worked on the song off and on for like 4 or 5 months, and we finally played it a couple weeks ago and we crushed it and the place went nuts. And you could just see the band, like, we were almost a little nervous when we started, like, okay, are we going to screw this up? And, you play that opening line, the audience goes crazy. When the song's over, it's like, oh man, we did something. Like, this is like, we, from beginning to end, got the song and entertained the crowd. And so there was that sense of accomplishment and pride, and it's a show, we were getting paid, but it was just, I think that was a moment where it's like, oh yeah, something cool just happened.
Yeah, and I know I would have gone nuts just by you guys playing the song to begin with.
Oh, people went crazy for it. Yeah, love that song.
As I've kind of pointed out, I am a pretty big Shania fan, so yeah,
Sure.
that would have been amazing. But one thing that you said that you tend to remember those disappointments more.
Yeah.
I had a lot of little moments where I did well real young, playing baseball, basketball. But the thing that I remember the most, that I feel the most, is striking out to end my team's playoff chances. The Northwest AA Giants of 1990 or 89, whatever year that was. And pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. It's not like I was playing for a state championship, but that is something that has stuck with me my whole life. Just that disappointment in letting the team down, or feeling as if I let the team down.
Well, and that's when you show up the next time and try to do better. You say, okay, well, I'm going to do better next time. I'm going to work at this and do better. It's just like you pick yourself up and you say, okay, what can I do that's better? And I think that's the thing. It is that idea of like constantly trying to improve and constantly trying to get better at whatever it is you're doing. And that could be anything. That's not even music. That's just life. I think that's why people play golf, because it's like, I mean, you're trying to have a good game. You're getting outside, you're getting exercise, but anything, it's always the idea that you're working at something, and it could be your business too. I mean, there's a reason why, Mark Zuckerberg is still working at Facebook. It can't be the money, man. The guy's got a lot of money. I mean, Warren Buffett, he doesn't need to be working at his age. He hasn't had to work probably since the 70s, but he still shows up every day. It's like, well, why? Well, because it's fun, because it's interesting. It's, he finds it. There's a challenge in there, whatever it is. There's a reason why people keep doing stuff. And I think, yeah, it is that.
Well, let me shift gears just a tiny bit here.
Sure.
And ask you because the world has changed a lot, and the idea of being an entrepreneur, that definition has kind of changed a lot. Was there a point in time where you woke up and you were like, I'm not just like a business owner or founder of this academy, I'm actually like an entrepreneur. I fit this entrepreneurial niche that has boomed so much. Did that happen?
Yeah, it's funny. My mom actually was the person who sort of pointed that out to me actually years ago. I never really thought about it because so my dad owned companies. Like he started out, this is 1978-ish, so, and I worked for my dad growing up, and that's where I learned marketing. And so I worked for him after school, and I worked in his office all summer long and things like that. And I have two brothers, and I knew I didn't want to work for my dad, and I knew I didn't want to work with my brothers. Like I just knew it wasn't the right thing for me. And so I went off and sort of did my own thing and figured it out. And my brothers are still running the companies that my dad started. My dad's not with us anymore, but my brothers are there working in the company. And my mom was the one who pointed out, she's, you're like the true entrepreneur because like, your brothers took over the company. They've done a great job, but you're like your dad in that you just said, no, thanks. I'm going to just do my own thing and start my own business. And then it was like, hey, and I thought, I'll just be a guitarist for the rest of my life. I'll just give guitar lessons in my room and I'll work in bands at night and awesome. And I have friends who still do that. Like they've never, and they're successful. They make $100 an hour in Los Angeles teaching guitar and they play in bands at night. But that just wasn't enough for me. And I saw this vision for being greater. And it was like, and not overnight, like, like after 2 years, add something. After 2 years, do some more, do some more, do some more. And so that was sort of that evolution when you look over the course of 10 years was like, oh, I guess I am an entrepreneur. I guess I am creating something. And I never really thought of it because it wasn't this thing where it was like, I was a billionaire overnight. It was this gradual thing that happened really over the course of whatever it is, almost coming up on 32 years. It was this gradual thing that I've been living. It's really a product of my life. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of evolution, product of your life, I want to ask to kind of round everything out here. When did coaching, business coaching, and being an author come into play for you?
Yeah, so there were a few things. I was always on like advisory boards and helping people, and I was working for an organization called SCORE, which is like a volunteer business coaching thing. And when COVID hit, all the businesses were shut down, and so everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, all right, we need to get more clients. The teachers didn't want to teach online. It was a real train wreck. And so I'm like, all right, so number one, I can teach the guitar lessons online. It had been a long time since I taught guitar, but I knew how to do it. I could give lessons in my sleep, and I could do it from my music room, and so boom. And I got a tight-knit group of teachers who were going to go with it. Because a lot of people were like, forget it, this pandemic's going to be over in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, so I'm just sitting at home until then. Obviously, it went on for 2 years. So I said, okay, so I need to get more students. So I started making a list of every possible way I could get students. And I literally it was almost back to like hand drawing business cards. I just started making a list, and then I started typing a list. And then it was hard for me to type, so I started speaking the list into my computer into a Google Drive. And I was sharing it with a friend of mine, and she said, wow, you basically just wrote a book. And I was like, oh, I guess I did write a book. And it was, and that book became Marketing During Tough Times, 56 Ways to Market Your Business That Won't Break the Bank. And it was a product of me trying to figure stuff out. And so I had also been working on this other book that is currently out of print called Music School Reinvention, where it was about everything I did to sort of get my music school going. And in the process of that, the same friend suggested I attend. It was like an online coaching seminar with her, and it was interesting. It was an interesting insight to like thinking of coaching as a business and getting clients and building an audience. And so that was 2020. So it's been about almost 2 years. It evolved into something called the Small Business Startup Club, which is a Facebook group I have, where there's daily shows with information on there, and people can hire me as a coach, or they can buy my book. And it's the idea of taking an idea that you have and turning it into a business. So knowing that, okay, I have a skill. I know how to play the guitar. I know how to teach the guitar. Can that become a guitar school? Yes. Can you expand that? How do you expand that? So that's really what it's built around.
Wow. Amazing. And you kind of back up everything that you've been talking about today, just keeping that positive attitude, keep
Yeah.
evolving, keep on trying to grow. And
Yeah, I definitely growing as a person. Well, and one of the things, it's interesting because the coaching industry is an industry, and the real industry. This people might find this amusing. The real deal with coaching is it's the coaches who coach coaches that really are successful, right? Like it's really coaching. And it's interesting because when I try to talk to the people about business, I realize a lot of the people who are coaches really don't have business experience. Not saying anything bad about anybody, but it's like if I'm going to help someone with a business, I can say, well, here's what happened to me. I had this, and this happen. Here's my 3 experiences or 4 experiences in this area. Here's how I addressed each one. And does that relate to your experience? Or, okay, how do you get from an apartment to like a commercial location if you don't have any money? Well, I went to a store and rented an office by the hour. So I didn't have a lease, or whatever, until I had enough clients to do it. So I know, I guess because I bootstrapped it. I never went to a bank and like borrowed money to get startup costs. I mean, other than like construction things to build things, I really didn't do a lot of that stuff. And so a lot of the advice I give people is based on things that I've done that I directly did, experiences that I directly had, or things that clients and things like that have given me.
Well, with all that being said, as we kind of get, unfortunately, to the end of this conversation here, maybe you can tell everybody how they can find you online, how they can work with you, how they can maybe find your book.
Yeah, definitely. So 2 things. You can visit my website, chriswilsoncoaching.net. If you're on Facebook, you can find me at Chris Wilson Coaching or the Small Business Startup Club. It's a public group. Anybody can join it. You'll see a picture of me on there, Chris Wilson Small Business Startup Club. You can contact me through that. You can join the group and see my videos and content that I post. And if it connects with you, you can reach out and we can talk about working together. Or you can just get the daily free advice.
Awesome. Well, Chris of Academy of Music and Art, founder and director, Chris Wilson, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule this morning to chat with me. I really appreciate it. Do you have any parting words or advice to aspiring or current entrepreneurs?
Yeah, we talked about baseball earlier. And there was one thing I learned from baseball in 5th grade when I took baseball. The one thing my coach said to me, and he's like, you know what? Sometimes you're going to get a hit and sometimes you're going to strike out, but don't be the kid sitting there with the bat sitting on your shoulder with the called 3rd strike. At least swing the bat, at least take your shot. So if you want to do something, at least try. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to do anything risky, but you really only get one shot at life. And I really do think if there's something you want to do, go out and make it happen. Go out and pursue it. That's the one thing. And it doesn't have to be in business. It could be anything you want to do. Take that shot because you'll look back and go, hey, maybe it's successful. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it led you down a different path. But taking that action, taking that movement will get you moving in a direction. You'll be moving.
That is awesome advice, but also a little painful for me because I was the kid who did not swing on the 3rd strike.
Right, and it still bothers you. See, I wasn't a killer player. I played baseball for a couple of years, but I would swing. I swing and sometimes it's just like you close your eyes and swing. You're supposed to like watch the ball and try to hit it. Like if you got to close your eyes and take the swing or take the shot. I think it was Michael Jordan said, I missed 100% of the shots I didn't take. So, yeah.
I still think that pitch was a ball 33 years later.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Well, and what was the umpire? You're 9 years old and like the umpire's what, like 13 or something, right? I mean, it's just,
No, I think he was a little older than that. I don't know if he was like...
He wasn't a professional, he was just some guy. Some local guy who gets to be in an umpire shirt, right? So someone's weird uncle who's like who likes sports, right? So
hopefully not too weird, but
yeah, you never know. But those are the things, and when that happens, I think if you are the kid sitting there with the bat on the shoulder, that's not who you are for the rest of your life. You know, you can change your story. You can change your narrative on the spot. I went from business student to professional musician like that quick, where it's like, hey, I'm not doing this. You know, goodbye, Northern Illinois University. Hello, Boston. I know I had not been there or whatever, but it was just like, I'm just going to go do it, you know? So if you are the kid with the bat on the shoulder and you get called third strike, that's not who you are for the rest of your life. That, don't let that one moment define you.
And right, if I will let that moment define me, I would not have even started this podcast, among other things. And to your point, even though I had a technical background, it's not like I ever got behind a mic and did something like this. But I just said, you know what? I have an idea. I think it's a good one. I'm just going to go do it. And
and you're getting better at it, right? How many shows have you done?
I haven't counted directly, but it's over 60.
Yeah, so look at your first one and look at today, and you'll go, wow, I was so bad. I'm so much better. When I look at my first videos, they're like so bad. And I'm like, hi, this is Chris Wilson. It's like, what? My friend who got me into the whole coaching thing was like, you should really talk like yourself. And I was like,
I can tell just in 2022, as opposed to, I thought last year I had a real good year with this show. The first year, I was just like feeling it out, inviting a lot of entrepreneurs I already knew to kind of get a feel. So I wasn't really sure. I knew I liked doing it. And then last year, I had a real good time for the most part with it. This year, it feels so natural. And I feel so good with it. And
you just get better at it, and so it's like, you just keep doing it, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to be a great broadcaster or great anything in a year or 2 years. It's time, and it's working at it and having that passion, I think, that keeps you going.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to keep going with this episode.
Yes, I know we're out of time. We're at that 1 hour mark. So.
as much fun as it's been, I could probably go another hour, but we already know where to find Chris. You can find me on LinkedIn at just MARC, Marc Schmidt. I love posting about entrepreneurship and podcasting, and I always encourage everybody to join that conversation. You can find me on Instagram at MarkMyWords6. Also, if you want to just see what I'm doing personally, it's Nimrod79. That's a tribute to Green Day, one of my all-time favorite bands.
And great band.
That Nimrod handle, you can find me on Twitter, Nimrod1979, Nimrod79 on Instagram, and you can connect with me in a lot of places on social media. And again, thank you to Chris Wilson for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I am Marc Schmidt. This is Mark My Words, and I'll be back very soon with another great guest. Thanks, and bye for now. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day to listen to Mark My Words. If you would like to connect with me beyond the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Marc Schmidt, where I will be talking about entrepreneurship, careers, and anything else that is on my mind. You can also connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at Nimrod1979 and Nimrod79 respectively. This podcast also has a page on Instagram at Mark My Words. And finally, if you want to leave me a voicemail or check out what I'm up to with the podcast, come find me at podpage.com/mark-my-words. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back with a new episode soon. Bye for now.